Hello everyone and welcome back to the Captain's Quarters. If you watched last night's Closer Look, you may have noticed that my parents were visiting, and it was the first time my father and the sea captain were in the same room, which was awkward, as my dad is on the record as not being a fan of the captain.
To be fair, Larry also doesn't like the Beatles.
That is a true fact about my dad. He doesn't like the Beatles. But we made time for my father and the sea captain to hash it out, and at the end of tonight's episode, we're going to show you that exclusive conversation.
Our discourse, like the sea, got a bit rocky.
Speaking of rocky waters,
Forced segue!
the president knows he can't win in November with a majority of votes, so instead he's trying to undermine the integrity of the election by sabotaging the post office. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Throughout the entirety of his term, Donald Trump has consistently been the most unpopular president in history. It's easy to forget, but he's been widely disliked since day one of his campaign. People might have thought they liked the character of Donald Trump on The Apprentice, but that's a little like enjoying Buzz Lightyear when you're watching Toy Story and then meeting the Buzz Lightyear in Times Square. To infinity and let's get this picture over with. I gotta take a dump kit and it takes like 15 minutes to get this suit off. Trump has never once cracked 50% approval in the Gallup Daily Tracking Poll, which is unprecedented. Even the Cats movie has a 53% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, although I guess unlike the Cats movie, the White House can't just digitally blur out the ass. Trump and the Republican Party have largely given up on the idea of persuading a majority of voters to side with them the way you normally would in a healthy democracy. The modern conservative movement is a fundamentally anti-majoritarian movement based on excluding people, not including them. It's not a coincidence that their Paragon owns private golf clubs. The Republican Party motto should be, sorry, you're not on the list. Their only hope of gaining and holding on to power is through tactics like gerrymandering, voter suppression, the Electoral College, stacking the courts, or colluding with foreign governments, which is why Trump has spent the last 4 years cold calling random countries asking them to help him cheat. Hello, Peru. Do you have any dirt on Joe Biden? Joe Biden loves trains. Looks super cool on a bicycle. Now, Trump got impeached for that, of course, so he's moved on to his next scheme, sabotaging the post office.
New today, the Washington Post reporting a sweeping overhaul of the U.S. Postal Service. It was announced in a memo late Friday from Postmaster General Louis DeJoy. The Post writes, the move displaced two top executives overseeing day-to-day operations.
This is coming as Democrats are calling for an investigation into DeJoy and his operating measures that some say have slowed mail delivery service.
That's right. Late on Friday, the Postal Service announced a massive restructuring that centers power around the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, a Trump loyalist who donated over $360,000 to the Trump campaign and Republican National Committee. And right off the bat, you know it's shady because they did it late on a Friday night. Nothing good ever happens late on a Friday night. Friday nights are for eating cereal at 2 a.m. and watching reruns of that cop show starring the guy who sells reverse mortgages. You're not gonna fool me by pretending to be a cop. I know you're here to take my house. Also, it's incredibly suspicious to have a right-wing businessman and mega donor in charge of a nonpartisan agency like the Postal Service. You think of postal workers as charming friends and neighbors straight out of Mayberry. This is like if your town's ice cream man was replaced by Karl Rove. Here you go, kid, one bullet pop. That'll be $6,000. They're made by Raytheon. Top of that, DeJoy, the former CEO of a logistics company, also has a massive conflict of interest. According to his financial disclosure, he has anywhere from $30 to $75 million in assets invested in competitors to the post office, which is absurd. That's like finding out the new president of PETA is the colonel. Your chickens will be safe with me. Oh, these legs and thighs are nice and juicy, not for eating. Now, Trump and DeJoy say the changes are necessary because the post office is losing money. In fact, you've probably heard Trump complain about it at one of his fake news conferences.
It's lost so much money over the decades. Nothing loses money like the post office. It's been losing massive amounts of money over the last number of decades, massive amounts of money. This is not something new. This is something that's been taking place for a long time. It loses a tremendous amount of money.
Okay, first of all, that's wrong. The Postal Service turned a profit as recently as 2006. Second, you're the last person on earth who should be complaining about someone else losing money. You lost $1 billion in the 80s and 90s, which was more than any single taxpayer in the country lost. And you also somehow managed to lose money on casinos, which I didn't even think was possible. I mean, casinos rake in cash. Last time I went to a casino, I spent an hour playing a game called the Money Eater. It was just a giant hole you threw your chips into, and when you ran out, it just screamed, "Feed me!" Also, it makes no sense to say the post office loses money. It's a public service. You never hear people say the fire department loses money. We should start charging $50 per cat rescued from a tree. Of course, most owners I know, most cat owners would also pay $50 if you left it in the tree. She'll come down when she's hungry, but I would love for her to learn a lesson. Now, Trump is not the only Republican politician to complain that the post office loses money. It's been a right-wing talking point for years, especially among those who want to privatize the Postal Service. The Trump administration itself rolled out a plan to do just that in 2018, and right-wing billionaire Charles Koch has been campaigning to privatize the Postal Service for decades, which is shocking and craven, given that the Postal Service is literally in the Constitution. In fact, it's as old as the Republic itself. So there was already a years-long right-wing effort to privatize one of America's most cherished public institutions, the Postal Service. Then came Trump, and he was joined in his crusade by a bunch of soulless right-wing husks who want to turn every post office in one of those combination fast food restaurants. Yeah, I'll take a Ted Stamps and a Doritos Locos Taco Supreme. And look, it's absolutely true that the post office is struggling right now, thanks in large part to the pandemic and a decrease in first-class mail volume, even though package deliveries have surged. But there's another reason the post office loses money, and it's actually the fault of the very same Republicans who are now complaining that the post office loses money.
In 2006, the Republican-led Congress did pass a law that affected the USPS's bottom line. It required the Postal Service to pre-fund health benefits for future retirees. We talked to experts who said that because of this law, USPS had to pay more than $6 billion that it really wasn't ready for. So before the law, USPS paid out these benefits as they came due. And they point out that no other agency has these restrictions. So without the law, the Postal Service would definitely be better off.
That's right. In 2006, Republicans forced the post office to pay 75 years of health fund benefits in advance, which is insane. Who knows what Postal Service will even look like in 75 years? Might just be a chip in your brain and you'll check the mail by winking. Oh, damn it. My student loan officer found me. I'm really bad at winking. So without that law, I can't get my mail anymore. So without that law, it's very likely the post office could have been operating at a profit before the pandemic. In fact, from 2003 to 2006, the Postal Service actually did operate at a profit until the 2006 law wrecked their finances.
From 2003 through 2006, USPS recorded a total $9.3 billion profit. That all changed at the end of 2006. Enter the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act, which was passed by the Republican-controlled Congress and signed into law by President George W. Bush. It required the post office to calculate all of its retiree pension and healthcare costs for the next 75 years, including for people it hadn't even hired yet, and put away enough over the next 10 years to cover them. To put this in perspective, that'd be like you only working from age 18 to 28 and then expecting to live on that income until you were 103 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine working for 10 years, then living off that until you're 103. The only person who's ever done it is Rudy Giuliani. Without this law, the Postal Service would have actually recorded operating profits in the last 6 years. Instead, it's now in a dire financial situation thanks to a requirement that virtually no other government agency or company has to deal with.
There was congressional legislation that required them to pre-fund their pension liabilities in a way that basically no one else has to, which has created an enormous burden on their balance sheet.
They're definitely in trouble. And what you mentioned, the pre-funding requirement, literally having to pay for or set aside money for the workers that haven't even been born yet, that will be coming in 75 years down the road, is the primary reason prior to the pandemic.
Just think about that. They had to pay for retirement benefits for workers who hadn't even been born yet. That's like going out on a first date and saying, I had a great time tonight. What do you say we go back to my place and open up a 529 college savings plan for our eventual children? It made no sense. And it weakened the Postal Service dramatically. Now, the post office desperately needs a bailout of as much as $25 billion from Congress, which, if you ask me, we should immediately do. $25 billion is nothing compared to the $740 billion Pentagon budget. You're telling me you can't find a billionaire to buy a F-15 or two? I mean, Richard Branson definitely has the vibe of a guy who wants the wind to blow through his hair at 1,800 miles per hour. And yes, I say that joke knowing my hair is getting more Branson-y by the day. And yet, rather than spend the money needed to shore up one of his country's most vital and cherished institutions, Trump and the GOP are using the financial situation as an opportunity to destroy the post office for their own political gain. Just this weekend, Politico reported that Trump's aides are exploring executive actions to curb voting by mail. including everything from directing the Postal Service to not deliver certain ballots to stopping local officials from counting them after Election Day. That is chilling. The president thinks he can just decide which votes count and which ones don't. Soon he's going to start crossing out ballots himself, and we'll all know because he'll sign them himself. And whether or not Trump actually succeeds in stopping mail-in voting is almost beside the point. Either way, he's sowing confusion, setting up lengthy court battles, and laying the groundwork to claim the results are disputed, even if they're not. He's made that as clear as possible.
I don't want to see an election. So many years I've been watching elections, and they say the projected winner or the winner of the election. I don't want to see that take place in a week after November 3rd or a month or, frankly, with litigation and everything else that can happen, years, or you never even know who won the election. I want to have the result of the election. I don't want to be waiting around for weeks and months and literally, potentially, if you really did it right, years, because you'll never know. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything. That's what's going to happen.
It's only going to happen if you make it happen. Trump's like a loan shark telling you, I'd hate to see your thumbs get broken. We can have a safe, successful election if we just adequately fund and protect the post office. You won't have to wait years for results, but even if you did, why are you complaining? Waiting around is like the one thing you're good at. Your favorite sport is 98% waiting around. You spend most of your days sitting in your bedroom watching TV and loitering on the White House lawn like you're waiting for a crosstown bus. He should be smoking a cigarette saying, I should have taken the M66. Couldn't decide how to hold my cigarette. What do you think, Trump like this or Trump like this? Either way, Trump is openly trying to disrupt timely delivery of the mail ahead of a November election that will almost certainly rely on an unprecedented surge in mail-in balloting because of the deadly plague he failed to stop. DeJoy has already announced major operational changes last month, including slower mail delivery. Post offices have been slashing hours. Local union leaders and carriers say mail is piling up in offices, unscanned and unsorted. It's gotten so bad, a Democratic senator is finally opening an investigation into the delays.
We have folks who rely on the Postal Service for checks, Social Security checks, paychecks, prescription medicines that are coming in. I'm hearing from folks, letter carriers and postal workers, they're saying they're seeing piles of mail that they've never seen before in their post offices.
That's insane. Mail's not supposed to pile up in post offices. It's supposed to pile up on your kitchen table till one day a mustachioed stranger comes to take your house away. Time to pay the piper, old friend. But you said you weren't going to take my house. I fibbed. I distracted you with my mustache, and I fibbed. And letting mail pile up is heresy for postal workers who pride themselves on timely mail delivery. Remember their motto, neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night? That's why Trump would have been a terrible mailman. He would have seen one cloud on the horizon, then dumped his mailbag in the East River and headed for the OTB. They'll never catch me. Oh no, since when does paper float? This is all Trump has left. He and the Republican Party have given up on fairly winning a majority of votes, so now they're trying to undermine the election itself, because Trump knows that if we have a safe and fair election in which everyone can easily participate, he has no chance of being the
projected winner or the winner of the election.
This has been A Closer Look.
So excited to hear your feedback, Larry.
Well, what I like about A Closer Look is that they're funny, but the jokes are about the news. Whereas when you talk, it's not about anything. At best, it's puns, which are the lowest form of comedy.
Okay.
And another thing, and don't take this the wrong way, you sound like Will Forte.
Love him.
And I was always more of a Bill Hader guy,
Hader.
or even Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah, I guess my only retort to that would be, you, Larry!
We've been talking about City Harvest since COVID began, and now more than ever, they need your help feeding New York families. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We love you.